At the end of the day, we bought it and we've just slayed about 56 IFBB pros. Hehe, motherfucker. So, the next step is Mr. Olympia, and all I ask is to get next to Mr. Heath and let's expose this motherfucker. Can you get for 8 or can we take him for 1? But I'm coming, baby, I'm coming. You might say I'm a young boy, but my black ass like a fucking silent assassin. If you're off, I'm sneaking up on you. What do you guys think? Is it possible he can be dethroned? I think he can. Maybe this year, maybe next year.
What is up, you guys? Johnny Styles here with David Baye one more time. This is Inside Out. It's May 27th, 2018, and we just finished the one and only CALI Pro. There's a ton of news and a lot of things happening, and we wanted to bring you this show as quick as possible because you guys asked for it. So, without further ado, I am here with my good buddy, straight from the city that's supposed to be cold, but it's not cold. David Baye, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. It is. It was like 98 degrees here today. So for those of you not familiar with weather patterns in Wisconsin, usually less than 4 or 5 times a year do we see weather even in the 90s, and it's usually in July and August. So for it to be pushing 100 degrees in May here is really rare, especially considering 6 weeks ago we had the worst blizzard in the last 130 years. So I think every state pretty much has the saying in regards to the crazy weather patterns, rather. But in Wisconsin, we say if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes, it'll change. And it changed fast and hot yesterday and today in the 90s. Supposed to cool down a little bit tomorrow, but a little bit more than what we're used to here in the middle of Wisconsin in May, that's for sure. But I'll take it. I don't have to shovel when it's hot outside.
I know you'll take it because the less snow, the better. And for those people that don't know, I think Dave's going to get into contest prep, or he is in contest prep, but we don't want to say anything because we want to wait a little bit.
No, I'm full go, dude. I can, I'll put it right out there. I'm full go. So today was 10 weeks out from my first contest of the year, in early August. Then state championships again in August 18th. So the prep is full go. And yeah, when I got to get outside and mow the lawn, it's almost like a nice walking cardio. But shoveling and snowblowing kind of sucks because you're cold and you actually have to lift weight and stuff. It's all kinds of I'll take mowing the lawn over shoveling any day of the week, anytime. So.
All right, so let's get right down to business. The open bodybuilding in the CALI Pro, the prophecy, as you guys saw in the beginning of the video right now, we did a little montage video, as we only do here in the AFS Network. The prophecy has turned into a 2-time win for Nathan Deasha, coming straight out of the UK, taking it by storm. And we promise you we're going to talk about this special video that Nathan did for Mr. Olympia Phil Heath. But before we get into that, Dave, what say you about Mr. Prophecy?
It was a great showing for Nathan in California. As you guys know, they had the muscle contest, CALI Pro, out in Culver City, put on by John Lindsay in his muscle contest, along with Tamer Al-Gindi and his brother Tarek. They put on a fantastic event. And it didn't disappoint. A huge lineup. I think there was something like 24 or 26 guys, a lot of big names. And it was a very competitive show. And we're starting to really see the resurgence of a lot of these competitions, not just have 1 or 2 guys who can come out there and do some damage, but a good lineup of competitors makes for a very interesting first call out and even into the second and third call out. And California was like that. So as you said, Nathan came out, kind of dominated this show. Again, a lot of good competitors, but straight from the get-go with the first call-out, Nathan really established himself as the front runner, carried that all the way through prejudging, all the way through the night show, and came out with another win. As he said so eloquently, he has now slayed 56 of the best of the IFBB. Oh, and look at that. His waist is still small. So we hate to beat the dead horse here, but for all the detractors and the doubters of Nathan Deasha, he made sure to hit his front double bicep in his classic fashion. And as you can see, his waist is just fine. It was a good showing for Nathan. So he was, I don't want to say disappointed, because obviously anytime you're winning a show like the New York Pro, that's something to hold your head very high about. One of the biggest shows in the IFBB, hands down. But he wanted to be a little bit better version of himself, and he really brought that to California. Anybody who's prepared for a contest knows that huge changes can happen within the course of a week, and those changes were really evident for Nathan. He was tighter in his front shots, tighter in his back shots, didn't sacrifice any of that fullness that we're used to seeing from him, and to me, he was really a clear winner in this show. Again, some good competitors, but from where I was sitting, saw a handful of videos. Muscle Contest did a great job of posting all kinds of videos on their Instagram page. Stuff was going up live, so we were able to follow along. And again, it really didn't look like Nathan's chance at getting the win there was ever really pushed, from what I saw.
Yeah, Tamer always does. You know, Tamer and John Lindsay over there, they do great shows. I've seen Tamer in Colombia and everything. Big things are happening for the Muscle Contest. But we got to talk about second place, Sas Harati, trained by Chris Aceto, and third place, Rafael Brandel, also trained by the technician. These guys were big and hard as well, especially Rafael, since we saw him in New York. We hadn't seen Sas. And there's all sorts of commotion. But before we go into Rafael, what about Sas Harati? Big, full, gnarly muscle.
Well, you called it. We did our predictions last week, and I went through my top 5, or my top 6 rather, and you went through your top 5 and top 6. And had we laid down some bets, I would have been on the losing end of that this week. So you called Sas as being in the first call out. You know, he competed at a little bit lower body weight, I know, in the past, so I wasn't sure how he would fare against some of these bigger guys. But as you see in these pictures, he was not giving up any size. He brought great condition. We did see Chris Aceto post a couple of pictures from the hotel rooms. Now, hotel room pictures, the lighting is usually a little bit more favorable. You guys can see those on Chris Aceto or Sas's Instagram page. But his conditioning was pretty sharp. So he brought a good level of fullness, good conditioning. Not quite as aesthetic as Rafael. We'll talk about that a little bit, but a really good combination of everything all around for Sas. And so for him to be in that first call out was a good showing for him, especially in a big men's open show. And, you know, taking second place behind somebody who's a top 10 finisher at the Olympia, somebody who just won the New York Pro, that's nothing to hang your head about. So Sas has got to be happy with that win, a really good showing for him. And I'm sure well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I would like to see him move forward, maybe hit a couple more competitions here in 2018 leading into the Olympia, and maybe get that qualification.
Absolutely. I think Sas has a great future. He's a great guy. He follows pretty much everything we do, and he's a good friend. And most importantly, I think people underestimate him. He's one of those guys that you see in gym clothes, and you don't realize when he peels off. He's crazy.
Yeah, no, and that's a funny,
here we go.
That's a funny thing about bodybuilding, is that, and you see it when you're at shows, and anybody who's been to even a local contest, you see it sometimes. You'll see guys all covered up, and you think, this guy's not much. And then he peels it off, and you're like, holy shit, like, where did that come from? Then we also see the flip side of that. Sometimes you see guys in tank tops or short sleeve shirts that look like they might be really impressive, and they peel off, and they're a little bit lacking. But there we see Sas next to Nathan Deasha in a side chest shot. And for as big as Nathan is, and Nathan is big, Sas doesn't look like he's really given up much size to Nathan. You know, I think Nathan definitely has the edge there, but it's not anything where it looks like Sas wouldn't belong there or that he's not being competitive. So again, a second place finish at a big show like the Cal Pro for Sas Harati is definitely a strong finish. And another strong finish for somebody you had in the top 3, Rafael Brandel.
I had it. Brandel.
What did you think
And
about
that
Rafael?
the reason I posted that picture of the side chest is exactly, you nailed it. It's because Nathan is pretty damn big, and we know that because we've been around him. But the people that don't know, he's pretty damn big. And then you post a picture and you see them on stage next to each other, and you know, you can't say anything about Sass because he does look like freaky big next to him. But for people that don't know, if you move the picture a little bit to the other side, and this is not a good side chest for him. These pictures, of course, from the NPC News Online page. We have Rafael Brandao from Brazil. A lot of hype for this guy. He went from New York to California, and he trained in the mecca of bodybuilding Gold's Gym over there, and everybody fell in love with him. He was sending all sorts of gnarly pictures, crazy details, and you know, he has a big following in Brazil, but here in America, not so much. Apparently, after New York, that people saw he wasn't, you know, he didn't probably get the placements that he wanted. He was really mad. But on the other flip side of the coin, he gained a lot of followers.
Yeah, you know, I don't think, in the big picture of things, I don't think he has anything to really be mad or disappointed about. If you look at who he finished behind at the New York Pro, he was in the top 5 at, again, one of the biggest shows, New York, following the Arnold and the Olympia. You have former New York champion and a top 10 finisher at the Olympia, Juan Morel. You have Nathan, you have De La Rosa, you have Josh Wade. So for him to even be in the conversation with those guys as a relatively newer competitor is really good for him. And again, here we see Rafael next to Nathan and next to Sass. Now, I did hear some buzz online and on Facebook and Instagram about how he was small. People are, oh, this Rafael guy's small. He shouldn't be in that comparison. Nathan, mind you, got 7th at the Olympia. He stood next to some of the best and cracked the top 10 and was his midway to the top 5. And Rafael stands okay next to Nathan. I'm not going to say that, you know, he pushed Nathan to his limits, but a very respectable pose for pose comparison between Rafael and Nathan. And so you have to give this guy his respect. I mean, if you look at that teardrop in his quad in the outer sweep, his waist is really small. He's got a good taper. Is he as, you know, just dense as Nathan? No, he's not. But man, I think he's a great competitor, and we're really starting to see some new blood. You know, there was so much talk over the last 5 or 10 years about when's the new blood coming? When's the new blood coming? Well, we're starting to see it now. Your Nathans and your Sasses and your Rafael Brandao. Let's take Rafael, and maybe he adds 10 or 15 pounds, but he keeps those same lines. What kind of competitor are you looking at then? So I think this guy can be dangerous. I'm excited about seeing him on stage in the future, but really good couple finishes for him. And I mean, yeah, look at the guy's wheels. I mean, that's an impressive physique, and especially, you know, he's one of those guys, when you see a picture like that of him standing alone, he might not look like the most imposing bodybuilder just because he's a little bit of a taller guy. I won't say he's, you know, he's slight or thin, but just when you look at him, mass doesn't just jump off the screen at you. But again, you put him in those comparison shots, and he stands very well with some of the biggest guys in the IFBB. And so a very strong finishing for him at a big show in California. And I think we're going to see big things from Rafael moving forward in the future. Yeah, I mean, that's a big teardrop right there.
He posted a picture. It's on the Liquid Sun Rays Instagram page about after he tanned these quads, and we're gonna talk about a different type of quad later on. But this guy is crazy. I heard a lot of commotion in social media world that with his shape and structure, with Nathan's shapes and structure, we might see a different change in the way of a different type of bodybuilder, meaning a bigger, freakier, denser bodybuilder, instead of like talking about somebody with lines. Like we had Josh Wade in this lineup as well, and he placed 4th, I believe, right?
Yeah, there's always going to be room in these competitions for different types of physiques. Nathan, and there's a reason why Nathan is top 10 in the world, because he brings good aesthetics, good symmetry, a lot of muscle, and good conditioning. And then you have somebody like Sass, who's again balanced, Rafael, really pretty lines. And here we have in 4th place another top 5 finish for Josh Wade. Now, here's a guy who turned pro at an older age. Admittedly, expectations for Josh were a little bit low. Look at this side tricep shot. This shot just hollers out dense, thick muscle. And he's not the most genetically gifted guy out there, but he's busting his ass and he's being rewarded for it. And frankly, I think it's awesome. He's one of these guys who's not on a lot of people's radar. Well, he is now. He's, you know, he's or if he's not, he should be. But Josh was a guy that flew definitely under the radar. You know, he went into a couple shows last year. People had low expectations, and now we see him consistently breaking the top 5, bringing density and great conditioning, as we talked about last week. As you had said, you know, he's got these comparisons to a Dorian-esque physique. Now, obviously, that's it's a little bit of a bold comparison, but I think people can see the similarities. And I think we have a picture of him hitting that front lats spread where he very purposely turns his head off to the side and goes for that Dorian Yates look shot. I'm not sure if we're able to bring that up, but you guys can see, once again, you can see all these pictures on NPCNEWSONLINE.com, and we do want to give a shout out to everybody from the NPC News Online team for allowing us to use these pictures. Great photography as well. These particular pictures were taken by our good buddy Ron Avedon. You guys, Ron's been around the scene forever. He's a hoot to hang out with. But once again, for all the pictures, a huge shout out to NPC News Online, and they have the full contest galleries there, guys. So we're going to show you some highlights as far as pictures from the show, but if you're looking for all the pictures, all the comparison pictures as far as results from all the NPC shows and IFBB shows, check out NPC News online. But I don't know, Johnny, what did you think about Josh? Again, a guy that not the biggest name in the IFBB, but he's certainly knocking down some doors for himself.
I agree. I think he's one of those guys that people like because he's big and freaky, kind of like when Marcus Rule was around. It's big, gnarly, freaky muscle. A lot of people still think that Josh kind of like lays out a little bit like Dorian, and here we have him. You know, he has Josh Wade, you got Lionel Bayeki in there, got Milan Sadek, and he looks gnarly, freaky. Like totally different structure of these guys, but the guy is in shape.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys, and this, you know, this is one of those things is super cliche, but he's one of those guys where pictures just don't really do him justice, and they rarely do with guys who are ultra conditioned. And I remember saying this when I was working for Muscular Development about Branch Warren, because there's a lot of things that a still image isn't capturing. When you see a guy plant his leg, and you can see muscle fibers twitching in his leg, when somebody grabs a still shot of that, that's not something you see. But when you're up close in person, and especially you know, having the pleasure of being in the front row with the media, you see some really crazy stuff when these guys are detailed, and that's the kind of stuff Josh is bringing. So for as good as he looks in these pictures, you can bet that if you're at one of these shows where he's competing and you're sitting in the front row, you're getting an even better show with Josh. So a great finish for him. And rounding out our top 5, and I have to eat my words a little bit here, he definitely wasn't at his all-time best, but the change from New York to California in just a week, pretty impressive for Lionel Bayeki in 5th place. Probably the most genetically gifted guy there. Again, not realizing his potential and taking home the win, but I thought he looked pretty good. What did you think, Johnny?
Absolutely. I think that Lionel Bayeki finally, it's whoever he's talking, whatever he's doing, he has to keep doing it. I remember last year he said he had some problems. It's like some type of, he's being diabetic or something like that. At the end of the day, his change from New York to this show, like night and day. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, he's still not tight enough in the front, and he's still not tight enough in the back, but you can definitely see he's got some detail in his quads that he didn't have there. He definitely looks fuller, and that was one of the biggest surprises when I saw the pictures of Lionel from New York, is he just looked really flat. Now, he's a big guy, and so even when Lionel's not in shape, he's still impressive because he's got a small waist and really round muscle bellies. And so when I saw him in New York, not only was he not in shape, but he just wasn't like popping like he normally does. So he's still not as tight as he needs to be, and you know, he's still not realizing his full potential, but definitely going from where he was at to getting in that 5th place spot, essentially to a handful of the same guys. It was a good improvement for Lionel. He just, you know, he's one of these guys where The same assessment like I made for Akeem Williams and Shelby Starnes, and everybody knows Shelby as a very reputable prep coach. Shelby posted on Instagram today just a quote that says, "You're only as good as your fattest body part," or something along those lines. You're only as good of a bodybuilder as your fattest body part. And Lionel is much like a lot of guys, where he just needs to completely only focus on his upper back. And when his upper back is as detailed as the rest of the guys at a top level, Lionel will be very difficult to beat.
Exactly, that was going to be my point, so I'm not going to touch it because we're two dudes with attitudes. Now we're going to talk about the guys that did disappoint, some guys that we thought were going to do well and didn't, do well. What say you?
Well, first we'll round off this top 10. So in 6th place, we had Milan Sadek, very similar to what we've seen him before. In 7th, we had Gerald Williams. 8th place, Patrick Moore. 9th, Eddie Bracamonte, a little bit improved from New York. And 10th, Kevin Jordan. If I had to talk disappointments and guys who I had expected a little more of, the 3 big names that jump out to me are Kevin Jordan, Luke Sandow, and Essa Obiad. We've seen Essa in the past just hues and diced. Essa looked like a different guy. He looked way downsized, wasn't as conditioned, and he doesn't have a pretty enough physique to where he can sacrifice that kind of muscle. So I was a little bit surprised. I thought he'd be higher up. Kevin Jordan, a good look for Kevin, but Kevin's one of those guys who's been consistently in the top 5 over his last handful of shows. So for him to be in that 3rd call out, now he still made top 10. So when we're talking about how was he top 10 and 3rd call out, if you guys remember, they did a 5 or 6 guy first call out, and then they sent Sas and Nathan and Raphael back. And then they brought a few more guys out. So that was technically the 2nd call out. And then Kevin was in the 3rd call out. Still finished 10th place. A lot of full muscle, you guys can see from this picture. His quads still need to come up a little bit. He's got a great hamstring hanging his side shots. Kevin's just got to get he's got to get real sharp when he gets on stage. When he puts everything together, he can be a dangerous competitor, but he's not quite big enough in his lower half, not quite thick enough in the back department where he can afford to be coming in as off as he did and still placing top 5. But he's certainly a guy who is close to where he needs to be conditioning wise. So if he were to pick another show, say the Chicago Pro in 5 weeks or 5 weeks from this last weekend, and jump in there, Kevin can definitely make the changes to get back up to where he wants to be. And also Luke Sandow. Luke is one of those guys where I had my first call out, he dropped to 15th place. So he was just almost in the DNP do not place department. Just not the conditioning that he needed to bring, especially if you saw his back shots, very soft, very watery in his back. And Luke's a very complete bodybuilder. He's got a ton of mass. He's not missing any body parts. His legs are huge. His backs are huge. His arms are huge. Chest. So Luke is where he needs to be from a developmental standpoint. He just needs to focus on dialing in, and he can win. But that's a discussion that we have about a lot of competitors just not hitting their stride every time as far as their contest prep, and Luke needs to figure out how to do that. He can be a top contender at any show he enters, but not if he shows up in shape like this. And it showed. He's a guy where with the amount of mass and his shape and stuff, he shouldn't be outside the top 10. So for him to slip all the way back to 15th says a lot about the conditioning he brought. He knows that, something I'm sure he's going to address, but I definitely would keep my fingers crossed that for future competitions in 2018 or whatever he decides to do, we can see him get back to a little bit better version of himself.
Before we wrap it up, 2 names. Milan Sadek, should he drop back to 212? And we got another guy that we didn't mention, Eddie Bracamonte. What do you think about that?
That's a tough call for Milan. He won some shows at 212, won New York, won a Europa at 212, and I think he can be winning shows as a 212 competitor. Now, he still is a little bit taller of a 212 guy, so he makes a decent transition into the open division, but he's going to have to put on a lot of muscle to be winning. So I don't want to say it's the exact same discussion we have along the lines of a Flex Lewis, but it kind of is. Flex Lewis is winning the Olympia in the 212. I don't think he's going to lose the Olympia in the 212 anytime soon. But if you put him in the open, he's, maybe a 5th or 6th place guy, maybe as high as, 3rd or 4th. But and I think it's kind of the same with Milan as far as 212 to open just at other level shows where, he can win 212 shows, but I don't think he's ever going to be really knocking on the door of getting a win. As far as Eddie, it was nice to see Eddie make some improvements from New York. And again, I didn't really think that from New York to California was going to be enough time for him to make changes to come out looking that much better. But again, I've said before, a lot of things can happen in 24, 48 hours, especially a week, especially when you're flying and stuff like that. So still not as high as Eddie would have liked, but he definitely kind of, brought things back together and brought a look that I'm sure he's a little bit happier with. 9th place, so he did crack the top 10 in a big lineup again. I think 24 or 26 guys. So he's definitely got to be happier. He was in his home state of California, wasn't across the country, but a good placing for Eddie. Not super, I think everybody wants to be in that top 5, but to go from where he was at in New York to cracking that top 10, he's got to be pretty happy with that, I would imagine.
I agree. I think there's only so much room for improvement, and I think Eddie's one of those guys that keeps improving. Even when you think he's not gonna improve, he gets better. There's a picture of him when he was like 18 or something, and you can see just drastic changes on him. So moving on, we've heard it before, we heard it again from a different bodybuilder, a bodybuilder that is not afraid to talk. If you saw the video at the beginning of the show, Nathan Deasha absolutely called out Mr.Olympia Phil Heath, somebody that is not, he's been on this position before. I believe Nathan, he understands the value of entertainment, and he's giving it to the fans and the people in the bodybuilding world. But behind every sports entertainment, there's a different storyline to it, and I think for once in a little bit of time, I think this storyline kind of hits the heart, huh?
Look, here's the thing with Nathan. He is trying to bring some excitement back to the IFBB. Now, if you guys didn't watch the Muscle Contest live videos, Tamer had him on camera saying that he was going to beat Ramy earlier on in the night. So for Nathan to go after Phil, not much of a surprise. Is it a bold prediction? Absolutely it is. Here you have a 7-time Mr. Olympia and a guy who's got 7th place last year says he wants to stand next to the reigning champion. Pose for pose, when you really break it down, aside from that back double bicep, I think Nathan's got a great back double bicep, so I think he actually goes pose for pose with Phil. But to be able to actually stand next to Phil, and I mean next to him as shoulder to shoulder, he's got to knock out guys like Ramy, Bonac, Dexter, Roden. So he's got his hands full. But it was nice to see him once again bring a little bit of excitement to the IFBB, create some buzz, and create some drama that we've really been missing.
I agree. I think there's no other way around it. I think this is the time for them to bring more excitement to the bodybuilding and fitness world. And I think Nathan, we know him personally, and I think this second win in California especially lit a fire under Nathan Deasha. So we wish him the best. Wish him a lot of good things. I know he's going back to his family in the UK, and I think we'll see more of Nathan coming soon.
Yeah, and I just, we're going to get on to some other stuff here, but I just did want to do a shout out to the guys at Muscle Contest. My buddy Matt Daniels, you guys know him as Manager Matt on Instagram. He was backstage with some of the guys and stuff like that, and he was showing the backstage setup, and it really spoke to how much emphasis that Tamer and Tarek and John Lindsay put on making sure these competitors are treated like professionals. And you guys, he's Manager Matt 1 on Instagram, but it was on his story. Every competitor had their own station. So they had their own nice little pad laid out with a mirror in front of it. And so there was all these individual stations for all these competitors, and tables with bananas and Pedialyte and fruit and snacks and this and that and that and this. And when you saw the backstage, it was like, these guys are really taking care of these pros. And I know sometimes all this talk gets thrown around about, oh, the athletes are treated like this and the athletes are treated like that. And look, guys, these promoters look, I'm not going to say everybody's, just bending over backwards for the athletes. Look, I'm a realist. But at the same time, it was really cool to see John and Tamer and Tarek put that effort forth and making sure they are treating these guys like professionals. Look, they are. This is a huge event. 26 of the best in the IFBB, and those guys got treated like it. So shout out to the guys from Muscle Contest for making it a first-class event, not only for the fans, but for the competitors alike, which the shows don't happen without the competitors. So it's the way it should be. You're thanking them for doing things the way they should be, but kudos in any regard. But we did have another pro show this weekend, just pro bikini. We had one in Korea. I know there was only a couple divisions there. I didn't get a chance to see the results from Korea, so I didn't want to just ignore that. We'll bring those results to you next week when we get some pictures. But there was the Dennis James Pro. Our buddy DJ, one of my favorite guys to see at all the events, and here we have your winner. Once again, pictures courtesy of NPC News Online. Ola Horobet. So not a bikini name that I've really been familiar with. In fact, I don't know that I've seen her at any shows before. But she walked away with a pro win, and more importantly, qualification for an Olympia spot. As you can see, a beautiful competitor, good lines, presents very well, and obviously the goal for anybody who ever turns pro is to make their way to the Olympia stage. So congratulations to Ola. She's on her way to Las Vegas in September to step on stage with the best bikini competitors in the world. So congratulations to her. Now, Johnny, we got to step away from competition talk a little bit, and we're going to talk about what people have been talking about in the industry this week. We saw an interview with one of our favorite people, King Kamali, talking about Oxygen Gym, talking about Regan and stuff. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Oxygen Gym because there's so much, I don't know if I want to say mystery, but talk about what goes on at Oxygen. How are they producing the results? What's it like? All this. And, both of us having a little bit of insight as to what's going on at Oxygen, we wanted to bring that up. Again, not going to really get into too much on why Regan left because that's a lot of personal stuff, speculation. But, Johnny, you talked to some of the guys that train out at Oxygen Gym. Give us a little overview, why guys are going out there, what differences they're seeing there. What's the big deal with Oxygen?
For those people watching at home, I know you saw this, and I left a picture of Ola Horobet a little bit, her side angle shot, because I know I'm going to get messages from you guys, and I showed it to you guys. I left it a little bit. That was her side booty pose.
Nobody's going to complain about those pictures being, I don't think anybody's going to complain about those pictures being left up.
That's the great thing about having a whole production, and that's the great thing about being here and showing you guys the best. Eventually, you'll have podcasts, but if you want to see physiques, because we're talking about physiques and we're critiquing physiques, you can check out our YouTube. You can subscribe. There's more shows coming along the way, so stay tuned. Now, before I segue onto segue, Oxygen Gym, yeah, sure. Our good friend Butter But we send hello to him. Great guy, amazing gym. Amazing couple of gyms. Every single person that goes there comes back baffled, including 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler himself came astounded. He came mind blown from this gym. And if Jay Cutler says that, then it's the real deal. Speaking of which, Regan Grimes wins New York. Nathan Deasha wins New York. Two guys that we know very well went to Kuwait to train with the Oxygen Gym crew, with the Camel crew, the Anabolic Chicken, and they came back. They're training now in the United States. Now, I think what everybody's kind of missing, and we've talked about this year after year, it's like, do you need to go over there? Do you need to be there, sleeping there, eating there, working your whole boot camp mentality? Aside from the States, where it's a little bit different depending on the bodybuilder. We know people like Jose Raymond have talked about this. King Kamali has talked about this. But in essence, I think it's very important to let people know the atmosphere, the two different sides of the world. What's in reality happening? And do you really need to go to Oxygen Gym to be a Mr. Olympia?
So I've had a chance, and you guys know I've been backstage, I've been all those places, and I'm not gonna pretend like I'm best friends with all these guys, but I've definitely had a chance to talk to the guys that go out to Kuwait. I've had a chance to talk with the trainers out there, Abdullah and Badr, and some of the other guys, and they're great guys. But here's the thing about Oxygen Gym. And I know there's so much speculation. Do they have access to supplements? Do they have special super acupuncture and massages that they're doing out there? And the answer is no, and no, and no. Here's what Oxygen Gym and a trip to Kuwait is. It is bodybuilding boot camp. You eat, sleep, breathe, live, everything bodybuilding. Now, when you take into consideration everyday life here in the United States, the distractions we have between friends and family, and I shouldn't even say those things are distractions. That's life, and those are important things. But things that maybe can detract you from bodybuilding. You go out to Kuwait, those things are gone. And you talk to the guys who have been there. They bring you your food in the morning, and then you eat, and then they make you go back to sleep. And then you wake up and you go train. And you have all these people around you pushing you, loading your weights up. You're training at the most advanced facility in the entire world. These are the best facilities as far as the variety of equipment, type of equipment. I don't even know how many dumbbells they have here. It looks like it never stops. From a facility standpoint, it's the best. But these guys are going through boot camp is basically what it is. So when people are like, oh, how are these guys making these changes? Imagine you take any bodybuilder, you take a normal Joe Blow who works 9 to 5 and goes to the gym. Take yourself out of that situation and put yourself in a situation where literally all you do, eat, sleep, breathe bodybuilding. And your entire environment around growing and building muscle is exactly the way it should be, from having all your meals to sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day to the recovery, the massages, the treatments, all this sort of stuff. It is like, it's basically, you know, when you watch Rocky IV and you have Rocky training out in the middle of Moscow in the snow and stuff, and you have Drago like being tended to by all these guys, like that's kind of what's going on at Oxygen Gym. Every variable that you have in bodybuilding is as perfect as it could be in Kuwait. Okay, so that is what's going on at Oxygen. There's no special tricks. There's none of that. Are there good trainers? Yes. There's good equipment? Yes. They're freaky bodybuilders? Yes. But essentially what it comes down to is it is boot camp. You live, eat, breathe, sleep, bodybuilding. Now, here's my thing. And I'm going to kind of try to put this all in a nutshell when I'm talking about Oxygen Gyms. Oxygen Gyms, hands down, are the best facilities in the world. Again, from an equipment standpoint, from a variety equipment standpoint, to everything about a training facility, Oxygen Gyms are the best in the world. They have great trainers, okay? These gyms are phenomenal. That being said, Lee Haney didn't train at Oxygen. Ronnie Coleman didn't train at Oxygen. Dorian Yates didn't train at Oxygen. Phil Heath doesn't train at Oxygen. Flex Lewis doesn't train at Oxygen. Arnold didn't. I could go on and on and on. The essentials of being a successful bodybuilder come down to hard work, dedication, discipline, and you kind of sort of have to have super elite genetics. Now, we would love to have Oxygen Gyms here in the United States. Trust me, so many people have said to Badr, when are you going to bring them to the States? But until we do have them, guys, you can still make plenty of progress and be a phenomenal bodybuilder right here in the U.S. If you can go to Kuwait, go, but you don't have to. And that's, I guess that's, my little rant here about, about Oxygen Gym. Is there's so many people that just keep saying like, oh, these bodybuilders, this person needs to go to Oxygen and this person needs to go to Oxygen. Could they benefit from it? Of course. Do they need to? No, they don't need to. And again, I want to make this very clear. This isn't any sort of knock on Oxygen Gym. I would love to go there just to train. But the other thing, and I suppose I should touch on this as well. The other thing you guys have to keep in mind when they go over to Oxygen, aside from being this boot camp environment, your social environment is incredibly different over in Kuwait. The internet is almost non-existent from what I understand. The websites you can visit are very limited. TV is pretty much all the Kuwaiti TV, so you don't get to watch your Netflix or your shows here. So for people who get a little bit cabin fever, I guess, or might go a little bit of stir crazy, it just might not be the best environment just for your head. Like you go over there and it's going to be this crazy boot camp and you're going to have all this great, focus on your bodybuilding, but you're going to have a hard time when you're not in the gym because, man, you can't talk to your family, your friends, or not that you can't, but the environment's different. So it's definitely not for everybody. But like I said, I'd love to go out there. I was kind of sort of planning a trip when I was still with MD. It didn't end up working out, unfortunately. But great gyms, like I said, I would love to have one open here in the United States. Certainly here in Appleton, Wisconsin. I don't expect if Botter wouldn't open one in the States. This would be his first choice for locations. But in any regard, guys, so much talk about Oxygen Gym. Would it be great to go out there? Yes. Does any competitor need to train there to be a winner? No, they don't. Like I said, if you have all the other tools and you're willing to bust your ass, some good genetics, you can train just about anywhere and be a winner. Train in Johnny's garage.
Yeah, I don't have a garage yet, but here you can access all these websites you cannot access in Kuwait. I can assure you that. And all these guys, they love to play PlayStation, Xbox, and all that, and they're such gamers. And I don't have anything wrong with gamers. It's just it makes you wonder why they are into gaming so much. It's because you can't. No. I mean, I'm still a gamer, but
I love my PlayStation.
These guys are into it. They're into it because the internet is not. It's not the same as we have here. The freedom is not the same as we have here in the United States. So, with that being said, I want to touch real quick on something that's been going on in social media as the Cal Pro just ended. And it seems to me that people are blaming some of the placings at the Cal Pro due to being Insta famous. What the heck?
So, oh man, I tell you what, I was on those MD forums for 10 years. I've been around the bodybuilding scene for a long time. Trust me when I say I have seen some stupid shit. But there's a lot of talk being thrown about Rafael Brandao and his third place finish being a result of his social media following. Now, he's got around 300,000 followers or something like that, so he's certainly not in the millions like a Phil Heath or a Kai Green or Flex Lewis. A couple of the top guys are around the 700,000-800,000s, but he's at about 300,000 followers, and there are people who legitimately believe that Rafael's third place finish was because of a larger social media following than some of the other people. And I almost felt like, we had talked before we did this show. We're almost like, is this too stupid to even post? Like it's that dumb, but it's being talked about, and we want to talk about on this show what other people are talking about. So I thought I would address it. And it's like, you know what, guys, I get, if the guy that you like doesn't place higher or somebody's placing lower or whatever, and you want to try to find reasonings behind why. Previously we called politics, or somebody had a sponsor that was paying for this, or, somebody's uncle's brother's dog's nephew, hangs out with one of the judges or something like that. But you know what, it's a really a nonsensical argument that people are saying that social media is causing placings. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, the idea that the judges would sit at that table and look at those guys up there and say, well, you know what, he doesn't quite have the detail or the mass, but he's at 350,000 followers, so you know what, we're going to put him in the first call out. It's ridiculous, and especially when the head judge is Jim Mannion. Look, Jim doesn't head judge a lot of shows these days, but still a handful, and he is as old school as it gets. Jim Mannion, trust me, is as old school as it gets. And if there's anybody who doesn't give two sideways shits about what your social media following is, it's Jim Mannion. That being said, Josh Wade in fourth place. Josh has got less than 10,000 followers. Kevin Jordan's at like 75. Dusty Hyanshaw's at like 75. So your argument about social media followings equal placings, it doesn't even make sense if you try to put other numbers together. So guys, pull your heads out of your asses for all of us. Seriously, I mean, it's just one of those things where
I really have nothing else to say because you just said it all. In reality,
I'm about to. I like this. This is me like borderline not ranting because this is stupid enough for me to go on a good rant. Johnny, we should get a rant alert graphic, like a David like rant alert, like warning graphic. And this would be the time. This would be the time. But it's so stupid. Like I like ranting, and you guys that follow me know I like my rants. I like ranting about stupid people. But this is stupid, like on another level, like almost just shake your head and face palm kind of stupid. Like, should we even really talk about this? But again, it's something that's being discussed, so we thought we'd bring it up. We thought we'd talk about it. But guys, just God, don't. Rafael got third place because he's got really good structure, very good aesthetics, and for as deep as the lineup was with other competitors, we didn't see a lot of guys bring just super, super shredded conditioning. Nathan was sharp, Sass was sharp. If you look down that line, Josh Wade was sharp, but that becomes an apples and oranges things. But if we look at the rest of the lineup, and and I'm looking at the placings and stuff, there wasn't anybody who showed up like super, super shredded. So Raphael, obviously, from a structure standpoint, from a muscularity standpoint, he's ahead of some of the other guys. Had he just gotten out conditioned all the way around and still got third place, and people had question marks, sure. But even then, to say it was his social media following is ridiculous. So, take your tinfoil hats off, get some sleep, and come back tomorrow with a better argument.
And in all my years of knowing Mr. Mannion, ask me right there in the pit, right in front of the judges, ask me when have I seen him with his phone. I've never seen him. I see JM with his phone. I use my phone. All the photographers use the phone. Jim Mannion never uses his phone for nothing. He doesn't even understand some things. It's weird to talk to him sometimes because you and I, and we talk a certain language, a slang, and then he comes back at you and you're like, okay, sir, I'm sorry.
He's old. No, he's old school. I'll tell you what. He's a pretty and look. And I know people are, you're trying to kiss up to Mannion. No, he's a pretty cool cat for an old school dude. Just like old school hardcore Pittsburgh guy. And there's a certain vibe for a lot of these older dudes that come from Pittsburgh. That's pretty cool. But look, I'll tell you, no, Mannion doesn't give a shit about your social media following. That I can tell you. But segueing into our next thing, a cool thing we did see on social media this weekend. In this, I was like, holy shit. Our buddy Artemis Dolgan from Golden Aesthetics, Golden Organics. You know him. Some of you guys know him as Zoolander. We gave him a little bit of a hard time when he did Junior Nationals like 4 years ago. But this guy's done incredibly well for himself. He's gone from kind of just being a physique pro to doing very well for himself in the supplement industry and in the clothing industry, making some really unique articles of clothing. A little bit controversial at times. I don't know how how well he's liked by some people, but the people who do like him love him. But anyway, he was training out at Gold's Vegas. He ran into Cutler. Now, I see Jay on a pretty regular basis, right? And he asked Jay to pull up his shorts, and this is what we saw. And I was like, holy shit. Jay is Jay on the comeback trail? Now, when you see Jay, you can see he's downsized a little bit, but he stays covered up. I had no idea Jay's legs still look like that. That is like he could have jumped on stage type shit. Jay, it's freaky, and I don't think by any means there's not going to be any Jay Cutler comeback. That's not going to happen. But the fact that Jay is staying that lean off season, that's pretty impressive. So the photo, again, courtesy of Artemis Dolgan's Instagram news feed, but an incredibly impressive leg shot. And Jay staying in good shape is just part of his his image that he has now, going to all the shows, all the expos, and everything like that. And Johnny, you've seen Jay just about everywhere too. One of the most popular guys in the industry, and still definitely living that bodybuilding lifestyle.
Absolutely. I saw Jay in Colombia. I saw Jay in the Arnold. I've seen him everywhere. And we cannot go off record because I have Jay Cutler on record saying that he would consider a comeback if, coincidentally, if Badr Bardai throws in like $1 million, he absolutely will do the Kuwait Pro, and he'll come back out of retirement. He told me, and he would let Chris Aceto handle the whole prep. But
oh boy, now you're teasing
this
people.
I'm gonna throw. Yeah. Oh, hey, we know the inside out of the industry here, so we gotta keep it locked here. Before we leave, I'm gonna throw you a little curveball because we have some announcements we gotta do after before we end the show. But we got a little bit of heat with this whole Regan Grimes thing, and golly, I didn't know we were gonna be so insta famous just because we talked about Regan Grimes, and we kind of defended the argument of Regan. So as we all know, he's a big, Instagrammer. People follow him. I've seen girls that said, oh, I don't care about that kid, but he looks great. The face looks great. Right. He's just a young guy, blah, 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 blah. I saw this picture on his Instagram. I'm going to pull it up in a second here. And it's him walking a bridge somewhere in the Riviera Maya.
Shit.
He's walking a bridge, and this kid is walking, and his back looks absolutely insane. It's one of those moments that you have to humble yourself and be like, wow, this is a great freaking back. Now, for you guys that are, I'm not gonna say that they're hating or whatever, but this guy right here totally deserves all the things in the world coming at him, because this is a great shot, eh?
Well, you're not doing anything for the classic versus bodybuilding discussion. This picture is probably going to fuel the fire more than anything else. Look, there's no secret that Regan had to pull weight back pretty far to make the classic weight limit, but he did it. Now, if he doesn't have a show coming up until the Olympia, I have no idea what his plans are. I don't know if he plans on doing anything else, but if he's taken off until the Olympia, there's a very good chance he could have blown up 15 or 20 pounds within a week and still been in good shape. So yeah, is Regan, I mean, I hadn't seen that picture before, so this is kind of fun that I'm seeing it for the first time as we're doing this show. But yeah, this picture, people are just going to look at that and say, this is exactly what we're talking about. That's bodybuilding. No, it's he's under the height and weight limit, so he still has a very small waist. So to me, it's still, again, to me, it's classic. And I've said this before. I think Sean Roden's got a very classic physique. I think if you pulled the height and the weight limits away and you just really focused on structure for classic physique, I think Sean Roden's got a classic physique. I think Flex Wheeler had a classic physique. Flex actually jumped back into the Olympia. He had to make the height and the weight restrictions, but even a younger Flex Wheeler, as big as he was, I think could have been classic. An old Lee Labrada. So when we think classic, you know, it was like before the new division came out, everybody really thought structure, and then we kind of saw what these guys looked like when they were fitting the height and the weight class, and so we kind of got this idea, okay, this is what classic looks like. And now you have Regan pushing those boundaries but still fitting the height and the weight class, and that being the case, people are once again questioning. And look, we've seen all these divisions kind of evolve and adapt and advance, and we're going to continue to see that with classic. Look, 2016 was the first year we had classic physique. Danny Hester, the first classic Olympia champion. Not a surprise to anybody that Danny would have taken that title. We're only our third year into classic physique. So guys, this division is going to evolve. It's going to advance, and you're going to see people who are bodybuilders pulling back. You're going to see men's physique guys pushing it to the limit to be classic physique competitors, which we've seen with Arash Rabar and Sadiq Kadzovic. So this is very much still a hybrid division, guys. Give it time, but don't just start writing somebody off because, oh, they look like a bodybuilder. He fits the height and the weight class. And again, as I ranted on last week's show, he's got what we talk about when we talk about classic physique. Broad shoulders, a great V-taper, small waist, huge quad sweep, incredible hairline. He's classic. You know, some people were criticizing his posing. Some people were criticizing his posing. Posing can be taught. Quad sweep and a small waist and that V-taper, that's more genetic than anything. Granted, your training can affect that a little bit, but look, if I didn't think Regan's posing was bad. Could have been, it wasn't at like a Danny Hester level or maybe a Breon level, but he's a young kid who's just making a transition, so cut him some slack. But you know, with that, we're gonna wrap this up. I did want to talk about one thing that I've got coming up this weekend. Not a lot of real big shows. We do have a couple events coming up, and I am going to be heading down to Houston for the American Fitness Expo, guys. If you are anywhere near Texas, this Saturday and Sunday, it is going to be a huge event, the George R. Brown Convention Center. We have some of the biggest names in the bodybuilding and fitness industry. You got Cutler, you got Bradley Martin, you got God, I'm just like, there's like a million people to list off. We have our Arnold Classic figure champion, Candice Lewis-Carter. We have our Arnold champion, bikini champion, Angelica Teixeira. We have Breon Anzi. We have Guy Sister Nino. We have Callum Von Moger. We have Cass Martin. We have Paige Hathaway. We have the Strength Cartel. It's a really cool mix because there's a lot of different people. So you have some bodybuilders, you have some strongman type people, you have some social media stars, you have your guys like your Bradley Martins. So it's just a really cool dynamic. Robin Daniel and Bailey are going to be there again. We had a ton of fun last year. So again, if you're in Houston, within driving distance of Houston, it's all day Saturday, all day Sunday, the George R. Brown Convention Center. It's the American Fit Expo. I think the VIP tickets are all sold out, but you can get regular tickets at the door. If not, I believe VIP tickets came with kind of a package with some gear, kind of like a fast pass for pictures and stuff like that, kind of like they do at Disney and stuff. But in any regard, I'm headed down to Houston this weekend. I'm really excited about it. So if you're anywhere near Houston, Texas, once again, George R. Brown Convention Center, the American Fitness Expo, make sure to check it out. And say hi if you're down there. If you're down there and you see me, don't come up when I'm like in the middle of an interview. I'm going to be doing media stuff, hosting some seminars, things like that. But make sure you say hi. It's always kind of a bummer when people, comment on a social media post or a Facebook post and like, oh, I saw you there. And it's like, come up and say hi. I don't bite usually at all.
All right. So. Yeah, he doesn't really bite. So
he doesn't really.
I know
bite,
it's gonna be. He doesn't really bite. Yeah. He'll be down there with a lot of stars. Hopefully, he'll get footage even from his iPhone or whatever. He'll send it over. We'll talk about it on next week's show. But
I will, man.
With that being said, thank you for all you guys' support and all your messages. We really appreciate it. And before we leave, I don't know if Dave, you want to say something to the people that have been texting us nonstop.
Yeah, it's been a fun week. So we've got a lot of really positive feedback. We're trying to gain some steam in this venture, doing some bigger things, making some adjustments. Definitely listen to your guys' feedback. So one of the things we want to let you guys know is we're here to make a show for you guys. So if there's something you want to see, something you like, something you don't like, let us know. Like I said, we're trying to make things better. And I know some people on the media side, when somebody says, well, you should do this or you should do that, people get offended or they take it with a grain of salt. And obviously we can't do everything that everybody says. But if you got some feedback and you don't want to put it out on social media because you think maybe it's a little bit offensive, shoot us a text message, shoot us a DM. Don't send me any weird pictures in DM like Kevin Jordan gets all the time. But no, we really appreciate your guys. We really appreciate your guys' feedback for the show. Click, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we're going to keep bringing you content. Johnny and I are both going to be getting interview shows going. I'm going to bring back All Access. We're going to be doing interview shows, having a little bit more fun than I did in the past and what we see with some of the other interview shows. Johnny's going to be doing a Latino version interview shows, obviously emerging markets. I don't even want to say markets because it sounds, but the fitness industry is as big as ever in South America, and we want to get Johnny doing some interviews highlighting those athletes as well. And my Spanish is pretty rusty. So, Johnny, that's all you.
Eventually, we'll get David into the Spanish-speaking world because he does have a lot of girl fans down there. So, for David Baye, it has been Johnny Styles, guys. Thank you for everything. We'll see you guys next weekend.